Is Rantanen the real problem for the Jets, or is focus actually Winnipeg's greatest foe right now? Too much attention being paid in the wrong direction? Marty, we'll get your take in a moment, but first, here's Scott Arniel's assessment of Game 1.
There was a lot of sloppiness to that game. That did not feel like a playoff game in Game 1 and Round 2. That felt like Game 45 in the middle of December.
Arniel also said there's a way we have to play as a group, and that's not how we played tonight. Marty, was this a team that just wasn't ready to start a new series, a team that just hadn't settled down following the emotional high of the Game 7 drama? And if that's true, who's that on, the players or the coach?
Okay, so I think that there was definitely a letdown emotionally and the intensity from what they saw in Game 7, double overtime against the St. Louis Blues, and playing the Dallas Stars in Game 1 of the second round. And their start of the game was not to the level as to what the Jets would want to, getting badly outshot, outchanced early in the game. Maybe that was to give Connor Hellebuyck a little bit more of his comfort level and his comfort zone. He was really good early in the game. But when I look at the Winnipeg Jets, I think that it is the difference between playing the St. Louis Blues, who were the second wildcard team, to now having to face the Dallas Stars, who were one of the best team in the Western Conference. So, yes, that is on the players, that is on the coaching staff to make sure that you're well prepared to all of a sudden be able to flip the page and not think, oh, we're playing the St. Louis Blues and this is what we did to have some success. No, the Dallas Stars are a totally different team. They have the depth, they have the speed, they have the physicality. It's a different type of challenge. And I think that the Jets were not prepared for that. Now they recovered. And I think that they played fairly well for the rest of the game. And they had a chance to be able to tie it or maybe take it into overtime and maybe win it in overtime in that game. But the start of the game showed me that it was deer in the headlight. They weren't ready. They weren't prepared to face that type of challenge that the Dallas Stars brings to the table. And obviously, we all know that Mikko Rantanen stepped up with a hat trick in the first period. That was a big difference as well.
Arniel spent a lot of time talking about Rantanen, saying Rantanen is just somebody that you always have to know when he's on the ice. Whenever you face elite players, you have to know where they are. We've got to know when he's on the ice. He went on and on. That's a lot of talk about one guy. Are the Jets, Marty, so Rantanen focused that they're now losing out on what they could and should be trying to do offensively themselves?
Look, you have to be Rantanen focused because the guys had back-to-back hat tricks in playoffs, right? I mean, that is what you have to do. But more importantly, you have to understand why is Rantanen been so successful in Game 5, 6, and 7, 4, 5, 6 of the first round against Colorado, and now Game 1 of the second round. The biggest thing for Rantanen is that you have to keep him on the outside. You have to box him out. You have to keep him on the perimeter. Look, in the first 3 or 4 games of the first round, he only had 1 assist. He had 5 shots from the slot. He had 4 shots from the slot alone in Game 1 against the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I get it, right? One is a rebound, one's a deflection, and the shot that he scored is, and his third goal went off a Winnipeg Jets player and full Connor Hellebuyck. But you still have to keep him outside of the middle of the ice. That's why he's so strong. That's why they call him the Moose, because when he gets there, he does have results. But when you look at the Winnipeg Jets, I think that defensively, they were able to do a good job against Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou in the first round. And those are really high-level players as well. But Rantanen presents a different type of challenge with the physicality. So now, it's not just the defense, it's the forwards as well. You have to be able to keep him to the outside. Don't give him the middle lane. Don't give him easy entry into the zone. Push him to the outside. And then after that, you won't have to focus about him. And then you'll be able to turn your game to, okay, how do we create offensively? The number one thing for me in Game 1 for the Jets was the power play. They went 0 for 4. If you score a couple of goals on the power play, all of a sudden it's a different story. We talk about Rantanen having a hat trick in a losing matter and the Jets being able to produce offensively. So how do you take the focus off Rantanen, box him out, put more focus on your power play? How do you create offensively? That is the big adjustment I would make for Game 2.
Marty, I know what you're saying about Rantanen, but just a little perspective here. Rantanen's got 14 points in his last 4 games. That's true. But it's also true he had 1 point, a single assist in the first 4 games of these playoffs. And despite 15 points and still just, he's only +1 in the playoffs, Marty. Is all that distraction talk of Rantanen putting the Jets on their heels and taking them out of their game?
Well, I think if you're a coach, you have to give your team the tools to be able to prepare and defend against the best player. If you're going to play the Washington Capitals, you're going to talk a lot about Alex Ovechkin. If you play the Edmonton Oilers, you're going to talk a lot about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Right now, because of the way Rantanen is playing, you have to talk a lot about Rantanen. You have to prepare against him. But that's the danger, Gino, because if you all of a sudden defend well against Rantanen, the Dallas Stars have a lot of other players that can step up. Roope, Hintz, you got Robertson, who's going to get himself going again. You got Wyatt Johnston. You got Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. You got so many players that can obviously perform well offensively that if you put too much emphasis on one player, your team game is not going to be as good against the rest of the team. But I do believe that if the team game defensively for the Winnipeg Jets includes the plan to stop Rantanen, that is going to be able to carry on against the rest of the Dallas Stars. So that is the trick here. You don't want to just say, we're going to defend one way against one player, and then the rest of the team, well, we'll do something else. No, it has to be the buy-in defensively from the Winnipeg Jets that is going to stop not only Rantanen, but everybody else. You mentioned, the 14 points, 8 goals, in that span. 7 of them are from the slot. Like, that's where Rantanen goes, like around the net, in front, in the slot, takes the shot, gets the rebound, gets deflection. That's what you have to cover. That's what you have to prepare against, but not just Rantanen, the whole Dallas Stars team.
Rantanen's on an incredible role, but he's one player, and he's not Connor McDavid. The Jets have a lot more to give, and a lot more than what they showed in Game 1. Now it's about changing their focus and getting back to what got them here.